entered the Poets Lighthouse. And here with us is poet Kelly Van Nelson with her original slam poem, Breaking the Rules.
I broke every rule when I graduated school at 16 with certificates filled with GCSEs. Grade A, but still no university degree. I couldn't afford to pay the fee when everything I earned from sweeping floors at the hairdressers, serving six-pack bread buns in the bakers, flipping burgers wrapped in grease-proof paper, went to paying the council official dividends courtesy of government lip service assistance for the four walls of rough-cast housing, camouflaged in a concrete jungle. Even the SAS would struggle to rescue the girl who always knew life came with a renewed daily mission. I broke every rule when I became a mule, smuggling my underage innocence beneath feigned self-confidence onto the bus to London down a one-way street travelling from Newcastle on a ticket bought without parental guidance. Because even though they say blood is thicker than water, it can also clot the veins, and I wanted to cut the reins from my mother and never look back. And Papa didn't care since the day he left me standing alone there while he rushed upstairs with a burst artery that flooded his heart with bleeding instead of beating. Never coming back downstairs again to see the girl cut off her pigtails to transform into someone that dovetails seamlessly into society. I broke every rule when I kept my cool because nobody who comes from a broken home wants to be broken. So I survived alone in the big smoke with a few pounds tucked in my coat, pocket to pocket rocket, spending the rest on night school to show the world I was no fool. Even though the Queen's English evaded thee and privilege passed over me, I was damn smart, playing the part, refining my art, giving myself a kickstart, following premeditated flow chart into a job, answering the phone, faxing memo, trying to erase the memories of neglected younger years and all the deeply rooted fears that I was never going to be good enough and imposter syndrome would forever be my only companion. I broke every rule not to be cruel but to be kind to myself when my boss chose to remind me that I had made it so far as to fly the cuckoo's nest, and I should never rest until I succeeded in making the migration from there to here worthwhile, never clipping my own frantically flapping wings, because only you can spread those wings and fly so high I could well see Papa in heaven's sky, and he might just see the woman I'd grown up to be. I broke every rule when I put on a jewel hat, corporate executive with a feather in my cap and a cap in my hand, working 24/7, building organizational brand before the darkness sets in and the side hustle kicks in as a poet with deeply rooted scars ingrained in a sonnet, with that feather and cap overshadowed in mental pain from the threat of a sting from the bee in my bonnet, buzzing so loudly it's a struggle to remember that I really did cut those pigtails off. And it's time to tell tales of truth, overflowing with what's real, helping to heal this soul who broke and was put back together on an open mic, bearing every crack in the spotlight, not caring if this poem is filled with so many loose threads it can never be wound on a spool, because I'm still the goddamn sharpest tool in the box that you can't box me into. Because I'll always be the girl who broke every rule in the school, who grew into a woman who would rather rhyme to make a dime than recline and decline back into old school. Thank you very much.
And I want to thank Kelly for being with us here in the studio today, and thank all our dear viewers for joining us in the Poets Lighthouse. I am your host, poet Finn Bell, and joining us today, as you can see, is poet Kelly Van Nelson. Kelly is the author of 6 books, including #1 bestsellers, Graffiti Lane, Punch and Judy, and Retrospective. Her contemporary poetry is featured in numerous publications, and her books are frequently gifted to A-list celebrities, including Academy Award winners. She is co-host of the Wordsmith Poetry Podcast and is prominent in discussing social issues, including bullying and domestic violence. She is the KSP First Edition Fellowship recipient, winner of Us Mumpreneur, Big Ideas Changing the World Award, Roar Success Best Book, and Most Powerful Influencer Award. She is also a Fortune 500 company full-time managing director and was 2020 CEO Magazine's Managing Director of the Year finalist and Telegraph NSW Businesswoman finalist. Kelly, it is a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's a delight to be here.
You're welcome. So excited finally. So Kelly, as a woman, why do you believe it is so important for us to continue breaking these so-called rules?
I just have a way of living life, which is to never sort of see myself boxed in by ceilings. And I think it's so important for women today to just be expressive and to live life full of
Hmm.
joy and to yeah, to break the boundaries and to live life freely and creatively. I've always been that way. I don't like to think outside the box. I like to think that there is no box. So I think it's our time.
I absolutely love that. Thinking that not even like trying to break out of the box, that there is no box to begin with. That is definitely the way to go. Thank you so much for that answer. And folks, hang in there because we are going to go for a brief break. When we come back, we will learn more about our enchanting guest. Thank you so much for returning from the break with us. We have with us here in our virtual studio, Kelly Van Nelson.
I'm loving the virtual studio, by the way.
Me too. It's exciting to think that we're actually in a studio, virtual or however.
Yes, this is it. Makes the world smaller.
Yes, definitely. So Kelly, in your 2020 poetry collection, Punch and Judy, you delve into the intricacies of the stages in a toxic relationship. When you were choosing and creating material for this particular collection, what do you believe you learned in the process?
Again, I go back to thinking, thinking differently and trying to break the rules a little bit. The collection started out as an idea around doing a collection of poems that were love poems, but modern and contemporary and imperfect. No relationship is perfect, and there are ups and downs in all sort of love partnerships. So it started out as this concept around modern love, and it evolved then into something much darker and more serious along the journey,
Mm,
which was bringing in real turbulence into relationships. And ultimately, it moved into the domestic violence space. And a lot of that came from um, some from childhood experience. I lived in a house where it was challenging, and
I see.
I had four stepfathers, and it was definitely imperfect. Let's just
Yes.
say. So I had experience, from a youngster of, a bit of turbulence in the household.
Hmm.
I'm lucky that I have a great husband. I've been married for 2 decades, so it wasn't personal experience, but I did see so much domestic violence going on in the world, especially during COVID. It was heightened. It's been heightened during COVID,
Yes, yes.
and I love writing poetry that creates impact and conversation about topics that truly matter in life.
Hmm.
And domestic violence is one of them. It raises awareness. It does generate conversation. So the collection evolved into this real dark sort of
Yeah.
book, but ultimately it comes out the other side as well, about freedom and about cutting loose, and about women finding their strength in themselves and being able to move forward from those relationships, and finding courage as well, whether it's to stay in the relationship or to leave. Both take courage. Yeah, so I ended up on a different path than what I started.
And it is a very just powerful path. I mean, thinking of I am so enchanted by the idea. There, as you probably know, there is a program and a column with the New York Times called Modern Love. And so I've been very enchanted about the updating of this concept itself, and trying to bring in the fact that it's imperfect, and that having a relationship takes a lot of work. And then you're adding on to that, the strictures of having, being somebody who is in a domestic violence situation. People put labels on that. They put the blame game. So we like to change up the world view on that. So yes, that's wonderful. I think it's almost kismet that happened, that it took that direction.
Yeah, I think so. It was meant to be.
Yes,
And I got
exactly.
a lot of reach outs from women who read the book actually and found some solace
Oh,
in the poems, which is just extraordinary.
that is.
Yeah, I sort of find my purpose in the poems, and I'm
Yeah.
glad it reaches other people sometimes. Yeah, but yeah, it's an
that
important
right
topic.
there that right there is enough for me. That is
Mm.
enough, that it reached, that it even reaches like a few people. But the magnitude of that ripple effect of it reaching out to people, and getting into hands of people who can read it and get solace from it and pass it on to other people. That's powerful in itself. Um, Kelly, you have this very skillful way. I noticed. I looked at a few of your videos, where you have. I think I looked at two of them that had. They were haikus of yours, and you
Mm.
have this wonderful way of making your poetry this delightful multimedia event. And because you incorporate elements of film and photography, I find them very engaging, very eye catching. So, where did you come up with this idea? And do you find that it has actually turned more people onto poetry who otherwise would not have showed interest?
Yeah, I love this line of conversation. So I'm very lucky that I have a son who is an aspiring film director. So everywhere you move in my household, the camera is on, and he's highly technical in his abilities to create film. So I collaborate a lot with him on turning poems
Mm-hmm.
into short films or into, yeah, sometimes just a haiku turned into a 30-second visual piece of film, with typography and movement. And I channel them through social media and into new audiences. And
Mm.
I've generated a really great youth and young adult
Yes,
audience as a result, probably an audience I wouldn't have had otherwise, just through the written form and through the books. Yeah, I've got this massive following now, and yeah, I do a lot of work with youths, especially in underprivileged communities. And the film snippets are a really great way for them to just see something different, incorporating
of
poetry.
course, yeah.
Yeah, and same with photography. I just like to fuse different
Yes.
creative forms, experiment, have fun, and yeah, create something a little bit different. I love it. I love just messing around with it at
That's
night. I
so
find it really
so
relaxing.
beautiful that you're bridging that, what would it be otherwise, still a kind of a gap, with your poetry, and bringing it to this, younger generation through a medium that they can easily relate with. And I have to say too, you have a creative family. You just mentioned prior to the interview about your daughter being able to take really fabulous photos. I love your
Mm,
photos, and now knowing that your son um, is into filmography. Very
it's true.
creative. That
Yeah.
that creative
Yeah.
gene is strong.
Yeah, both of my two children are creative souls. And yeah, my daughter likes to give me an image makeover every time I have a new book out, and she's
An
very good
image
at it.
makeover. Okay.
Yeah, the last book I launched, book 6, was called Retrospective. It was very 80s, so she gave me a whole 80s look and got the blue
Oh
eyeshadow
my
out. And
goodness. Okay.
yeah, it's fun. It's fun. They keep me grounded and keep it real, and they definitely they're my biggest critiques, the pair of them as well, which is great.
That explains to me the color palette. I was looking at
Mm,
certain photos, and I felt this very retro vibe. I said, "Oh," and I have to say, I was an '80s baby, a teenager in the '80s. So
yeah.
I look for and find everything, '80s vibe. I've been having this recent thing about, like, refining music that's very niche, but very '80s. And so, yeah, right away I honed in. I was like, Kelly looks very like 80s vibe in this photo. And
Yeah,
there you
very
go. That's
disco
what it was.
ball. Yeah. Yeah, this is it. And it just brings a different aspect to the poetry. And yeah, I definitely brought a bit of a beat of music through some of the poems as well.
Yes.
Yeah, lots of fun.
Beautiful. You know, you are right in line like what we're actually trying we try to do here in, you know, with PGN. It's fresh and it's innovative and it's reaching people who otherwise would, you know, not would kind of turn away and say, you know, stodgy
Mm,
poetry, you know, just recitals. No, no, make it fun, but also, you know, make it profound, really.
yeah, that's right. I think poetry is really having its day. It's definitely, I wouldn't say it's made a comeback.
Is.
It's never really gone away, but it's definitely finding, new followers and new
Yes.
audience. It's
And
exciting.
I read somewhere that people, especially of college age, have been looking towards poetry during this time of like lockdown. So it has been a neo renaissance, I guess you could say,
Mm,
for
so
poetry.
true.
Yes,
Yeah. 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 And you can go online now. There are so many online events. There's no excuse to try
I
it out.
know. I'm a little addicted to the online
Yeah,
events, I
me
have to
too.
say.
Yeah, me too. Through the
And that
night,
and
it's
yeah.
terrible.
So Kelly, you know, I have to ask you, aside from poeting, poeting, that's a word, all day long, actively, you know, just having your presence out there, you also work full time. And it's a Fortune 500 company, no less. And on top of that, you juggle being a mom, which is the most important job of all. If you were to pass on a few key pointers on how you do this, um, what would they be?
I struggled with this for a long time, having almost three different personas, being a mom and being a corporate executive and being a poet who writes a lot. I have to write every day, usually before bed. And they were sort of different compartmentalized personas. And a couple of years ago, I got some coaching on this. I had business coaching, and my publisher coached me a fair bit as well to collapse some of those boundaries between the worlds and just be like really embrace being one full authentic self.
Uh,
So I started merging the worlds. Really, my kids got involved with the poetry and coming to events, and I sort of shared a bit of my work through colleagues, and they started coming to poetry events, and just merged the worlds. And I would just say, I find now I'm much more true to my authentic self. I
mhm,
don't have the boundaries. My day is just full of whatever it's full of, and I get the full time job done. But I get to ride and I get to do the things that I want to do, and I spend my time wisely. So I
mhm.
would say just be true to yourself. Don't hold back, and merge yourself into one whole self. And yeah, you become more efficient and a full, a fully rounded person by doing that. That's the way I've managed it, but it took me a long, long, long time to get
My
there.
goodness, yeah, just you know, I probably have to work on that a little bit more. But you know, just you saying that merging, you know, merging your worlds, and being able, that's ideal. That's so ideal to be able to incorporate and have this easy flow amongst what would otherwise be, you know, separate
Mm,
um, lives. I mean, the fact that you just mentioned that you're able to get your coworkers involved and excited about your poetry, um, that just is like that has synergy. That has beautiful synergy to
mm.
it.
Yeah, that's right. And I think a lot of the topics as well that I write about have synergies as well across corporate, world and outside of
Hmm.
work. I tend to always write about social issues, current things going on in society,
Yes.
and that's relevant everywhere. It's relevant in the workplace. It's relevant in private life. So yeah,
Yes.
the topics, cross over, and yeah, I just find it easier to live that way now. But yeah, I had a lot of coaching on
And
it.
I think
Yeah.
it also pushes forward the point that
Mm,
how, you know, poetry is actually used to enact, you know, these social changes, these um, you know, different things that we'd like to see improve in our life. It's not just simply pretty words or, you know, things that you study academically. It has this power to move things forward. It does have the ability to be a agitator, an agitator
Exactly.
to let people notice things.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely you can amplify topics, I think, through poetry, and it's
Yes.
got such a nice, short, succinct way of
Mm,
using words that it can really drive meaning quickly on something
yes.
or get a point across quickly. And yeah, I find it's a really great vehicle for, really pushing something out into the domain that matters. Mm.
Yes. Exactly. I love when I'm able to meet poets who are able to do that, and they're you know bringing out their like these open mics are great vehicles. These open mics that we go to online have been great vehicles to reach out to people and include them in your agenda, and make them feel passionate about it as well. Make them feel
Yeah,
passionate
exactly.
about matters
Mm.
that do matter.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Here's a fun fact, viewers. Kelly has had two books, 2 years in a row, 2020 and 2021, included in the Academy Awards Swagbag. So, how did this come about, Kelly? And can you tell us a little bit more about the experience?
Yeah, it definitely was one of those crazy moments in life that happens, and it's unexpected, and it took my writing career to a whole nother level.
Mm.
I was lucky in Australia. I had my first debut book, Graffiti Lane. It became a bestseller. It was a number one
Mhm.
bestseller. I think because it had this real contemporary vibe, it brought in themes of graffiti and themes of creativeness that is sometimes misunderstood, not vandalism, but good graffiti, as in good street murals, and the messaging that
Yes.
underlies a lot of that artwork. So it definitely found a life of its own. It did very well across Australia, and it got gifted to some TV award celebrities in Australia, and somebody from LA picked up on that and
Oh,
approached me
yeah.
to include Graffiti Lane in the swag bags. So yeah, my debut book that happened in 2020, and it was really crazy. I got a message from her, to say a copy had been left in Robert De Niro's suite.
Ooh.
I actually met John Travolta, ended up meeting him backstage in Australia at a VIP event, and gave him a copy, and it got given to all of the award winners and nominees. So it was really exciting. Yeah, and crazy. And then this year, my second book, Punch and Judy, the one we were just talking about earlier around domestic violence, also got given to the Academy Award nominees and winners. And yeah, we had an Oscars party. I wore a gold dress on the day. Of course, I didn't get to meet anyone because we were in lockdown with COVID. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely celebrated. Put a bit of glamour into the
Oh
poetry, and it
yeah,
was a
absolutely.
crazy, crazy, crazy moment.
I
Mm.
would love to see that gold dress.
Yeah, yeah.
So exciting. Just
Yeah, surreal, hey?
yeah, it
Yeah,
really is.
definitely
Yeah.
surreal. Yeah.
So we are at the end of our time, Kelly. It was so wonderful to be able to sit with you. I wanted to leave our viewers and leave you with one last question.
Mm.
And so I would love for you to switch us on to the local poetry scene in your area. So, say for example, you were taking us on a poetry tour of where you live, all the
Mm.
places you go to hear slams, poetry readings, find good books, and even interesting poets to mingle with. Where would those places be in your area?
So I have an amazing poetry scene right here on my doorstep. I live in New South Wales in
Wow.
Sydney, and we have one of the biggest slams in Australia right here in Western Sydney, which is called Bankstown Poetry Slam. It's huge. It's usually about 150 poets attend
Ooh,
there. So I've
yes.
performed there. There are events on almost every day. There are sunrise events. You can go in the morning and sit on the beach and share live poetry with a small group. Right up to most nights, there is an event on either in one of the bars or
Hmm.
in one of the venues. There are lots of things you can attend. It's pretty big. We have the Australian Poetry Slam as well, which are the country
Hmm.
championships, and there are many online events as well. I run a couple of online events. I run an event with my publisher, and I
Okay.
co-host it. Making Magic Happen Press is my publisher here in Australia, so we run
Hmm.
an open mic event once a month. And there are podcasts as well. I run a podcast, so there's just so much. You can have as little or as much as you want. You could, yeah, I'm a bit like you. I'm addicted to it, so you can do sometimes 5 events a day on a weekend and just get stuck in. And it can be all day long. You can just go at it. It's kind of
Poetry,
everywhere.
yeah, poetry and beaches and bar hopping sounds like
Yeah,
heaven. Can
yeah.
I would love to move there. When can I just move? Can I move there now?
Yeah, this is it. It's a really great scene, I must be honest, and a very nice
Yeah.
community as well. So a lot of the Australian poets, we all know each other, and we, talk a lot offline. I've got a chat on my phone, and it pops up to see if the poets want to just check in and have a chat.
Ooh,
So yeah, there's a really big community. Everybody sort of knows everyone, even though the country is enormous. We connect a lot, and
that
everyone
sounds
supports
so
one another beautifully.
lovely.
Mm.
I was joking with a previous guest, not that long ago, that we need to move the poetry capital to Bangalore, because it seems like her local Indian poetry scene is is just ideal. But now you have to co-share. I guess you have to co-chair with her.
That's right.
It's going to be two capitals in this world. It's going to be Sydney and um, Bangalore.
It sounds
Well,
good. We will give Bangalore a run for their money. Yeah, it's pretty good here.
right, right. It's beautiful. The best of both worlds. There you go.
Exactly.
So Kelly, thank you so much. We appreciate that you took time to sit down with us, and as always, thank you to all our viewers for tuning in. We have had the pleasure, folks, of sitting down with Sydney-based poet Kelly Van Nelson in our virtual studio today. I'm going to say that term again because I love that, virtual studio. So please go and find out more about Kelly at www.kellyvannelson, all one word.com, and find out about her advocacy, her books, events, and how to follow her on social media. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube, the Poetry Global Network, and follow us on Instagram at the PGN Official, and continue to show us support by watching our programming and liking and commenting on our videos. Everyone have a fabulous evening.